Blockade breached again. Dozens of Iranian-linked tankers slip through Hormuz, and oil keeps flowing. Data says one thing, Trump says another, and reality is highly contested. Because in this war, the control isn't just about ships, it's about the story. At least 34 tankers linked to Iran have bypassed the US naval blockade since it came into force on April 13th, raising serious doubts about US President Donald Trump's frequent claims of tremendous success. According to the cargo tracking group Vortexa, many of these ships reportedly had crude oil on them. But the POTUS believes an entirely different story.
The blockade has been a tremendous success. I will not lift the US embargo on the Strait of Hormuz until Washington reaches a final deal with Iran.
A separate report by shipping journal Lloyd's List said 26 Iranian ships bypassed the US naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz to export Iranian cargo to countries across the globe. At least 19 of them have exited the Gulf past the blockade line. 15 others have entered it from the Arabian Sea, heading toward Iran. 6 of those departing were confirmed carrying Iranian crude, 10.7 million barrels in total, worth an estimated $910 million. Despite multiple reports suggesting the US was losing its footing in the slippery waters of Hormuz, Donald Trump has been adamant that he was going to stick to his guns, or, to be more precise, warships. One of the vessels reported to have slipped through was the Dorena, an Iranian-flagged supertanker that switched off its transponder before navigating past US forces on April 17th. Satellite imagery from March shows the same vessel off Malaysia conducting a ship-to-ship transfer, a technique used to mask the origin of oil. It was last tracked off the southern coast of India a day later. The Pentagon pushed back hard when shipping intelligence firm Lloyd's List published its own breach figures earlier this week.
First of all, this is false. Second, a Dem senator cheering on the #1 state sponsor of terror is shameful.
Lloyd's List, a 292-year-old maritime analysis company, stood its ground. It said its findings were backed by satellite tracking, advanced analytics, and on-the-ground intelligence. US Central Command earlier said its forces turned back 28 vessels since the blockade began, and American forces have seized 1 container ship and boarded a sanctioned tanker in the Indo-Pacific. Iran has kept the strait on its own terms throughout. Ships attempting to transit without Iranian permission have been fired upon. An Iranian cargo vessel has crossed the Strait of Hormuz despite a US naval blockade now entering its second week, as shipping traffic through one of the world's most critical waterways grinds to a near halt. The Sharjah 2, a general cargo ship, departed Shahid Rajai port near Bandar Abbas on April 14th and was tracked heading towards Kandla port in India. Bloomberg reported the vessel crossed the strait before going dark, switching off its location signal shortly after passing through. It is the third reported Iranian vessel to make the crossing since Washington imposed restrictions last week. 2 oil and gas tankers also transited in both directions earlier, but the broader picture tells a different story. US Central Command has turned back 27 vessels since the blockade began, releasing footage of a helicopter gunner warning a cargo ship over the radio that it had entered a restricted military zone.
Since the commencement of the blockade against ships entering or exiting Iranian ports and coastal areas, U.S. forces have directed 27 vessels to turn around or return to an Iranian port.
According to tracking data, only 16 ships were recorded crossing the strait on April 21st, with around 800 vessels stuck in the Persian Gulf. A day before, on April 20th, US Marines rappelled onto the Iranian-flagged Tuska in the Arabian Sea after the guided missile destroyer USS Spruance disabled its engines following 6 hours of warnings. Tehran called it maritime piracy and warned of retaliation, with Iran's foreign ministry branding the blockade collective punishment amounting to a war crime.
Not merely a violation of the ceasefire mediated by Pakistan, but a criminal act and collective punishment amounting to a war crime and a crime against humanity.
According to reports, Pakistan's army chief Asim Munir spoke with US President Donald Trump, warning that the blockade remained the key obstacle to resuming nuclear talks, to which the POTUS has promised to address the concerns. A 2-week ceasefire between Washington and Tehran expires on April 23rd. Trump has said an extension is not likely, and Iran hasn't budged either. What happens next is anybody's guess. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, said the Strait of Hormuz was completely open for commercial shipping during the ceasefire. The statement was meant to signal stability. Instead, it triggered immediate backlash inside Iran. In a post on X, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed that maritime transit would continue during the ceasefire period.
In line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of ceasefire, on the coordinated route as already announced by Ports and Maritime Organization of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
US President Donald Trump said that Iran will never close the Strait of Hormuz again. Oil flows, markets drop, but control stays tight. In the world's most vital choke point, calm feels conditional. So is Hormuz truly open, or just operating under new ownership? Ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of ceasefire, on the coordinated route, as already announced by Ports and Maritime Organization of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Social media reactions were sharply critical. Some accused the government of weakening pressure on the United States. Others went further, calling it a betrayal and demanding the dismissal of the government. Dismiss the Pezeshkian government and Araghchi, if these rumors are true. The government's betrayal is clear and pure. One post questioned whether Araghchi understood how much blood has been spilled to build leverage against the enemy. Another called for the removal of the administration if the reports were true. The criticism was not limited to Araghchi. It extended to the broader political leadership, including figures like Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. The reaction forced a rapid shift in messaging. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps moved quickly to clarify that the strait was not open without restrictions.
Movements will only be permitted with the permission of the IRGC Navy.
State-linked media, including Tasnim, began emphasizing conditions. Only commercial vessels would be allowed. Military ships were excluded. All transit would require coordination with Iranian forces and follow designated routes.
Only commercial ships can pass. Military vessels are prohibited. Ships must go through a route designated by Iran. The passage of ships must be coordinated with the Iranian forces responsible for this passage.
The revised messaging made it clear that control remained with Iran's military, not with a blanket diplomatic opening. The sequence exposed a disconnect. Araghchi's statement suggested openness. The military response reasserted control. At the same time, global markets reacted to the initial signal. Oil prices dropped sharply following the announcement. But inside Iran, the focus was different. The issue was not economic impact. It was strategic messaging. The Strait of Hormuz is seen as a key point of leverage. Any suggestion of easing that pressure, especially in public, draws scrutiny. What followed was a rapid correction. A diplomatic statement triggered domestic backlash. That backlash forced a harder line. And within hours, Iran's position shifted from completely open to tightly controlled access.